So you'll recall Nebuchadnezzar's statue, right? Starts out with a gold head, and then it toes, which are the destroyed historically. Gets destroyed. Rules over the king. Armageddon in Revelation 19. That is the city that rules. Revelation 17 tells us it's a city. Riches. Filled with the world that traded with it. Crying out. Burned with fire in one. So there are three cities. That city, in the Roman Catholic Church, the Antichrist will be the false prophet. Okay, beast of in the Antichrist Decapity. I don't time on it because a lot of people. So there's the heart. All the nations, not just that. Banking, British. For example, we think of the federal there, right. But really it's that under the monarchy. So most is a group of international monarchy. Which is the heart of the modern, except for the world is in New York Stock Exchange. The biggest. There's this thing. It's Babylon.
It's Baal.
The French created.
Wow.
They knew the United States people. Goddess is associated with literature on its history. Inside of it, before it was renamed the Statue of Liberty.
Wow.
So that's a good argument for New York.
Babylon.
Yeah. Babylon.
Mm.
Is how many cities, enrich the trade with if it were destroyed. York for all three, but the fact in combination with everything else, New York. You can pre-order the second edition. Worked on for a decade and ran in the coming world. Pretty incredible background. People know that the center of Christianity. Kim Jong-un's own family, his father, and gave us. There's a lot of history in Israel also. So military analysis, but all that back and all these probably realistically for more than a. They're all serious works, and they're mankind has.
Prophecyhouse.com, and he has all those. Just absolutely everything you've heard, but can you imagine all the research? Thank you so much.